My manipulative boyfriend pulled a cheating prank on me on my birthday, so I left and went MIA for days. He somehow convinced me to stay with him but then revealed a disturbing secret about the prank. Last week was my birthday. I got off work early, but when I came home, I saw a random woman lying on top of my boyfriend. When he saw me, he jumped up and got between me and the door as I turned around to leave. "It's just a prank, sweetheart," he said, and out of nowhere, 10 of his friends came downstairs with a cake and presents. I was crying because I thought I had just been cheated on, but my boyfriend told me to stop. "I know you said you didn't want to party, but don't you think this is cool?" I kept crying, and that's when he got more aggressive. "Oh my God. Stop being so sensitive. It was just a prank. I put all this effort in so you could have a fun time, and you're crying." I immediately pushed him out of the way and walked out. I got in my car and drove off. While driving, my phone started getting bombarded with texts, calls, and messages from my boyfriend and our friends. When it got too distracting, I just turned off my phone and went to a hotel far enough from my place. By the time I got to the hotel room, I started sobbing. The next morning, I told my team leader that I would be absent for a few days due to an emergency. She was kind enough to accept my request, probably noticing something was off because I was sniffling and sounded weak. Right now, I plan on telling my aunt, who lives near me, about what happened and asking if I can stay with her for a couple of days to sort out my thoughts and figure out my next steps. I feel deeply heartbroken. I've told my boyfriend and my friends how I feel about cheating and how it essentially ruined my family growing up. My mom cheated on my dad, which broke our family apart, and I was also cheated on by my first boyfriend. I don't know how to face them all after what happened, but maybe some time away will help. I packed my things and prepared to go to my Aunt Kathy's house, which wasn't too far, but still a bit of a drive. When I finally got there, she was incredibly welcoming, and I thanked her for letting me stay, even if it was just for a while. She gave me a tight hug and said, "You're always welcome here. I'll be here to help whenever you need me." She led me to the spare bedroom in her house and helped me unpack. Honestly, she's such an incredible woman, and I love her so much. She's basically the mom I've always wanted. Once I was done unpacking, I faced the reality of not having opened my phone for quite some time. I had avoided it for so long that I didn't think I could handle turning it on again, but I knew I had to. When my phone booted up, hundreds of texts, missed calls, and chats flooded the screen. Even though I hesitated, I decided to check our friends' group chat first. At the start, the messages were frantic, with my friends asking where I was and what had happened. But as I scrolled further, the tone changed. They started apologizing for the prank and saying it wasn't part of the original plan at all. One friend even blamed the girl who had been on top of Ben, calling her untrustworthy. The final messages were them hoping I was safe and asking me to reach out. I guess they realized I had seen their messages because, as soon as I finished scrolling, they started messaging again, asking how I was doing and where I was. They apologized repeatedly for the prank, saying they hadn't known what would happen and thought it was going to be something different. I was confused because they seemed so happy during the night of the prank, but I knew I had to hear their side of the story before responding. After apologizing for ghosting them, I asked my friends to explain what had really happened. Their story shocked me. They said they'd been planning a surprise birthday party for me with Ben in a group chat that didn't include me. At some point, Ben added a few of his college friends to the chat, saying they wanted to meet me and be part of the surprise. One of Ben's college friends, a woman we'll call Susan, suggested they do a prank as part of the surprise. Her idea was for Ben to be on the couch while she, dressed as a serial killer, held a fake red knife and pretended to stab him. She'd be on top of him, and Ben would pretend to bleed out dramatically. They thought it would be funny to record my reaction. My friends were initially skeptical but agreed as long as the prank didn't drag on and was quickly revealed. They said they trusted Ben's college friends when they reassured them it would all be harmless fun. When the day came, everything seemed to be going as planned. My friends and Ben's other college friends hid, waiting for the prank to finish so they could jump out with cake and gifts. But when they finally came out after Ben called them, they saw something was wrong. I was crying and visibly upset, even after they revealed it was a prank. That's when they noticed Susan wasn't in costume and wasn't holding any props. She had just been lying on top of Ben like it was a normal thing. They watched Ben push Susan off and chase after me. When he came back, looking distraught, they tried to ask him what had happened, but he locked himself in the bedroom. Moments later, Susan followed him in. They overheard Ben shouting at Susan to F off and saw her leave the apartment on the verge of tears. The rest of the group was confused and shaken. After I turned off my phone and disappeared, my friends left, unsure of what to do. They were horrified when they realized the prank had gone horribly wrong and sent me messages apologizing and explaining that none of this was in the original plan. After hearing my friends' side of the story and seeing the videos they sent as proof, I felt terrible for ghosting them. I apologized and assured them I didn't blame them for what had happened. They were relieved to hear from me and said they were just happy I was okay. They also suggested throwing a late birthday celebration just for me, without Ben or his college friends. I agreed and thanked them for being so supportive. They were truly amazing, and I couldn't thank them enough for sticking by me. The next morning, my aunt woke me up to tell me I had a visitor. I had a sinking feeling about who it might be. Sure enough, it was Ben, holding a bouquet of flowers and my favorite chocolates. He looked disheveled, like he'd been crying for days. I asked him how he found me, and he admitted that an app on my phone had alerted him to my location once I turned it back on. I was frustrated that he'd shown up unannounced, but since he was already there, I decided to hear him out. Ben reiterated what my friends had told me but added more details. Apparently, Susan and his old college friends had reconnected with him a few weeks before my birthday. They'd found him on Facebook and wanted to catch up. Ben said they were thrilled to learn he had a boyfriend and were eager to meet me. When they started planning my surprise party, Susan suggested the prank. Ben admitted he was uncomfortable with the idea but went along with it because he didn't want to seem like a killjoy. On the day of the party, he noticed Susan wasn't in costume and didn't have the fake props. He confronted her, but she brushed it off, saying there wasn't enough time to prepare. Before he could stop the prank, I walked in and saw them. He panicked and called everyone out to try to salvage the situation. But when I left crying, he realized just how badly he'd messed up. Later, when Susan followed him into the bedroom to comfort him, she made an inappropriate comment. "So, does this mean you're single now?" That's when Ben realized Susan had orchestrated everything on purpose. He shouted at her to leave and cut all contact with his college friends afterward. As Ben told me all this, he broke down in tears and begged me to forgive him. He said he loved me and couldn't bear the thought of losing me. His words brought me to tears too because, despite everything, I still loved him. After a long hug, I asked him to help me pack my things so we could return to our apartment. I also gave my aunt the warmest hug and thanked her for being there for me. She jokingly threatened Ben, saying she'd whisk me away to safety if he ever hurt me again. Back at our apartment, Ben offered to throw out the couch used in the prank, but I declined. I told him we needed to move forward together, even if the memory of that day lingered. Things seemed to be getting better between Ben and me. We had forgiven each other and were working on moving forward. But a few days later, Ben came to me in tears and confessed that he hadn't been entirely truthful about Susan. He told me that Susan wasn't just an old college friend. She was actually his ex-girlfriend. She had been his first serious relationship, and they'd shared a lot of firsts together. When they graduated, she broke up with him because she didn't want to be tied down by a long-distance relationship. Her breakup left Ben heartbroken and spiraling into depression. It took him a long time to recover, but he said meeting me had helped him find happiness again. He described me as the light at the end of the tunnel and said I was the person who gave him hope to move on. But when Susan re-entered his life, old feelings were reignited. He admitted that they had been meeting up in the weeks leading up to my birthday. One thing led to another, and they ended up being intimate every day up until the prank. Ben broke down completely as he told me this, saying he'd been chasing the nostalgia of his old relationship with Susan. But when he saw my devastated face during the prank, he realized that what he had with me was incomparable to what he had with Susan. That moment had shattered his illusions and made him see how deeply he'd hurt me. As much as I still loved Ben, this revelation broke me. I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me like that, no matter how remorseful he was. I calmly told him that I accepted his apology but couldn't be with him anymore. I started packing my things, telling him that we needed time apart to think and heal. Ben didn't take it well. He began sobbing uncontrollably and clung to me, begging me not to leave. He hugged me so tightly that I had to push him away to break free. I ran to my car and drove to my aunt's house, where I broke down in her arms. My aunt didn't ask any questions. She just held me as I cried until I was too exhausted to continue and fell asleep. The next day, I received a call from one of Ben's friends. They told me Ben had been found unresponsive and was now in the hospital. I didn't want to go. I was still deeply hurt and felt like I needed more time to process everything. But Ben had no family nearby, and I was the closest person who knew his medical history. I felt obligated to step up, even though my heart was still shattered. Now, I'm sitting outside his hospital room, waiting for an update from the doctors. Ben hasn't woken up yet, and I'm bracing myself for when he does. I don't know how I'll face him after everything that's happened. Truthfully, I still love him, but I also know we can't be together. His betrayal and the events of the past few weeks have made that clear. Right now, I feel lost and unsure of what the future holds. I just wish things hadn't ended this way.